the two of you agree is the
Oh,
best
wow.
thing for the, you know.
Okay.
I think getting enough playtime on the video is important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right out there. Oh, Keith Harry.
Good to see you.
Oh, yeah.
Good. So what do you guys want me to do?
Just like any other candidate, everybody's going to have 3 minutes, and then we're going to take turns being the first one to answer each question.
Okay.
So I've got 5 questions, so everybody will get a
Okay,
shot.
great. And I just won't spend much time. I just go fast. But good.
Oh, I like
Yeah,
that
that'll be
style.
fine. We'll
30
appreciate it.
seconds.
Okay, thank you.
60 seconds. Oh, do you say? But you say the 60 seconds first, then the 30, then the stop.
Anything anyone needs. Hi, Heath. Welcome.
How are you?
Thank
you very much. Doing okay?
Thanks for coming. Yes, I am.
Thank you. Thank
Is there anything anybody needs?
I'm good.
Okay. I have some note cards. Would y'all like anybody want any note cards or anything? Or you got stuff to write on if you want to? You all good?
We're all good.
You know,
Hey,
how are you?
I'm.
Good, Johnny.
Decent crowd.
Shall I go out into the lobby and draw the troops in? Okay.
It's hot. Hey, Marshall. Is this going to be aired? Is this going to be aired? Yes, is this going to be aired? This? Yes. Is this going to be aired? Okay.
Yeah, we're being live streamed by the. present. I see Brent.
Brent, Angela.
Is Angela here?
Angela's here.
Okay.
I saw her.
Don't see Robert. Don't see
Charles.
Charles.
I was told, actually, no, Robert said this here.
Okay. I'm going to mention them anyway.
I don't see Charles. I don't think Charles is here yet.
Good evening, all.
Oh, me, we got a handheld here.
Welcome to tonight's candidate forum for the 2015 trustee election for the Humble Independent School District.
Can't hear you.
Is your mic even?
On May 9th, voters will choose 3 of 7 trustees for the Humble Independent School District. Within the confines, some of them really confining, of our state's constitution, statutes passed by the legislature, and policies adopted by the State Board of Education. The board sets policy and supervises our district of 90 square miles, 40 schools, 5,000 employees, and 40,000 students. Those elected will serve a 4-year term and serve without pay. Our forum this evening is sponsored by the Lake Houston Area Chamber of Commerce. They're represented here tonight by Ms. Jenna Armstrong, by the Humble Council of PTAs, represented by Ms. Heather Creech, and by the Humble Association of Texas Professional Educators, represented here tonight by Stacy Ward. Texan Live is live streaming our meeting tonight and also recording it. Those who are unable to be here tonight will be able to view this forum on the district's website. We also want to acknowledge the staff of Atascocita High School who have provided the use of their Performing Arts Center for us to meet this evening. I'll be your moderator this evening. I'm James Ellis, a retired social studies teacher in the district, an adjunct instructor in government at Houston Community College and Lone Star College, also a parent of 2 Humble graduates and grandparent of 2 current Humble students. Before we proceed any further, let me ask everybody to please turn off cell phones and other things that will make noise since we are being recorded here tonight. Also like to recognize the 4 members of our board who are not on the hot seat tonight. I'm sure they will enjoy this a lot more than some of the others will. I see Miss Angela Conrad is here with us tonight. Mr. Brent Ingelage. Mr. Charles Cunningham. And Mr. Robert Sitton. Our candidates this evening, in the order in which their names will appear on the ballot, for position 2, Mr. Keith Lopez, who's done such a bang-up job that nobody even ran against him this time. Seeking position 6, Mr. Johnny O'Connor. And Mr. Heath Rushing. Candidates for position 7, Mr. Robert Scarfo. And Mrs. Nancy Morrison. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to tell us what we should know about their background and their goals for the office. After that, we'll put questions to the candidates. The rules for that are complicated only when I try to explain them, so I'll wait on that till we're ready to have the questions. Without further ado, I believe I'll start again in ballot order with Mr. Lopez.
Just the introduction.
Good night. Hello. My name is Keith Lopez. I've served on the board now for 9 years. It's crazy how fast time has gone by. Believe it or not, I'm the second youngest board member, but I'm the longest tenured board member. I'm not sure what that means, but it's been an interesting ride for the last 9 years. I'm looking forward to the next 4. Over the last 9 years, our district, as everyone knows, has had astronomical growth, but we've had, at the leadership level, Dr. Sconzo with us, and but things have, I guess, we've all grown together as a district. What's going to be interesting about the next 4 years, and what should be really the undertone of, I guess, this entire election, is that whoever's elected here today, they're going to be responsible for making the most important decision that a school board member can and has to make, and that's hiring a new superintendent. In the next 4 years, Dr. Sconzo will retire. He'll still be with us, but we'll have to replace him. So that's important. That's crucial. And so when you're listening to the board members tonight and you're listening to the questions and answers, in particular the answers, keep that in mind. Who do you want to be on the board that's going to make that decision that's going to affect this school district for a decade or more in the future? And I think at a fairly crucial time, because we still have significant growth, buildings, and our future as a district. I'm going to do my best tonight to stay out of the way because I am unopposed. This is my third election, first time I'm unopposed, so it's actually a nice place to be in. But I will chime in from time to time, and I may give some unsolicited advice about what I've seen, the characteristics of a good board member. I've been lucky enough to serve with 12 different people, not including myself, on this board. And we've been fortunate enough as a district to have very, very good board members. But I will chime in from time to time today to let you know what I've seen, kind of the characteristics of who has performed well, at least in my opinion. But again, thank you so much for being here today. Everybody here that's here tonight and watching knows how important this election is and how important school boards are to us and our community. And thank you.
Mr. O'Connor.
Okay. Good afternoon, or good evening, rather. My name is Dr. Johnny O'Connor, and I'm a Humble ISD Board candidate for position 6. My desire to run for Humble ISD School Board comes from having an interest in the safety and success of all students. My wife, Kendra, and I have 2 children, Chaseley and Brawley, who attend Humble schools and are actively involved in extracurricular activities in the area. We're also members of St. Luke's Missionary Baptist Church here in Humble. I was reared and influenced by a long legacy of family educators who motivated and instilled in me the desire to give back to my community. I have over 15 years experience in both public and post-secondary education. The last few years, I've worked as a school support officer with Houston ISD, which is the largest district in the state and the 7th largest district in the nation, as well as a professor at Lamar University. I've been recruited to work with both underperforming and exemplary schools in urban and suburban areas. Through the success of this work, I've been recognized for my commitment and accomplishments through numerous awards and commendations. I've also been invited to present at both state and national conferences and had the opportunity to author and publish several academic papers and articles. My formal education includes a PhD in Educational Human Resource Development from Texas A&M University in College Station, Master's of Business Administration from Texas Southern University here in Houston, Master's of Education from Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, as well as a bachelor's degree in Speech Pathology and Audiology from Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Additional training includes training from Harvard University Graduate School of Education with a certificate in special education, University of Texas Graduate School of Education Superintendent Training, Rice University School of Business Strategic Marketing, and I'm a licensed speech-language pathologist. My platform consists of 4 main points: school safety, quality workforce, fiscal responsibility, and quality academics. A top priority of mine will be school safety. We must ensure that our schools are safe and conducive to learning. Quality teachers are the foundation of a school district. We cannot have our quality teachers leaving our schools, and we must ensure that we provide our teachers with the support to ensure that they do the best that they can do at all times. As a board member, I will do my part to ensure organizational transparency, efficiency, and effectiveness. We must be deliberate, strategic, and bold. As an experienced educator, I can offer a relevant and practical perspective to addressing the issues that many boards face. Education is the foundation of who I am, and I'm the only educator running for position 6. For more candidate information, please see voteoconnor.com. Thank you.
Ms. Rushing.
Hi, my name is Heath Rushing. For those of you in the audience that I haven't met before, I appreciate you coming and supporting this event tonight. Special thanks to the hosts that have already been mentioned. It's always great to have the opportunity to speak in front of a large crowd like this that we don't have at our school board meetings, by the way. So please remember those meetings occur on the second Tuesday of every month at 7 o'clock. So we'd love to have all of you. A little bit about my background. I am currently the CEO of Memorial Hermann Northeast Hospital. I've been with that hospital now for 8 years when Memorial Hermann took it over, so I've been in the community for that long. This community welcomed me with open arms back in 2007, and so the reason why I got involved in running for the school board is because my mission in life is to really build a sort of a family work and community balance, and with my background in education in terms of it being a part of my entire life. My mom's a retired teacher of 35 plus years. My wife taught kindergarten for 8 years prior to now teaching our kids every day at home. Felt that was a great connection for me to be able to give back to the community that has given me so much in such a short period of time. With my remaining time, I wanted just to explain some of the things I'm most proud of in my first 2 years. With your help 2 years ago in 2013, you helped me achieve almost 52% of the vote in a 6-person race, and appreciate that support very much. And so a couple of things that I think make me the best candidate to continue as the incumbent in position 6 is some of the work we've been doing. The first area is accountability. You heard me talk about that 2 years ago. The first meeting I got to attend as an elected school board meeting was the superintendent evaluation process. And so in that process, it was an interesting one. Learned a lot about the district, but most importantly learned we were a little fragmented. We had a lot of expectations, but not very focused. And so as a part of an effort that, through some recommendations that I made, we've made a much more focused effort in the superintendent evaluation process and goals that are now streamlined across the entire district that help hold everyone on the same page accountable to the results that we want to achieve. 50% of that is based on student achievement. And so there's some things that we will get into the rest of this evening related to student achievement, I'm sure, but just know that that's been our focus, will be our focus. And my name's Heath Rushing. I appreciate your support on May 9th.
Mr. Scarfo?
Thank you, Mr.
Oops. It's on the bottom, I think.
Thank you. Thank you all for being with us this beautiful spring evening. I know you could be other places, but we really appreciate you being with us. And those who are possibly watching right now online, that's great. And who will watch in the future, thanks for tuning in. And I just want to make one other thank you before I just continue our remarks. And I want to thank my wife, Jamie, who's sitting in the back, for all her understanding, her support to help me do what I do in my volunteer life. So thank you. I've served on the board since 2008, served this year as the board president, and as Mr. Rushing said, I'm proud of a lot of the things we've accomplished in the last few years, last 2 years, last year. I've served as the finance chair the last 3 years, and I'm happy to say that the last 2 fiscal years we passed the balanced budgets to start the school year. And at the same time, if you look back 3 years ago, we were dead last as a district in terms of teacher pay compared to that group of 14 other districts we compare ourselves with, who we compete with for talent. And we as a board decided something had to be done, and something was done. We've moved now in the last 2 fiscal years to 6th place against that group of districts we compete with. So we're very proud of that. We injected over $20 million in the last 2 school years into additional compensation, not just for teachers, but for entire staff, because it's very competitive out there, as you know, in the, excuse me, the business world, with companies competing for everything from teachers to bus drivers to nutrition service workers across the board. It's very competitive. We have to stay competitive. We want to attract and retain the most talented people to our district, because at the end of the day, high quality teachers have the biggest impact on student outcome in that area. The other thing, we've done other things with the committee. We've put a bond finance, refinance program in place, and from last year through next year, we will save over $27 million in lower interest costs over the life of those bonds that we refunded. So that's a good thing, because we can use those resources other places. The other thing I'm really happy about is, and I talked about this at the convocations this August, is that I was able to implement with my board colleagues' approval a technology committee. And Ms. Conrad chairs that, Mr. Rushing and I serve on it, and we have met our goal to come up with a 3-year plan, because we really felt we were falling behind in technology. And that plan now encompasses all that we want to do over the next 3 years, and we are going to be baking those numbers into the budget that we're working on right now, because one of the biggest things we have to do that we face is connectivity, and we will have our Wi-Fi connectivity across the district. Thank you.
Ms. Morrison.
Okay, my name is Nancy Morrison. Tell you a little bit about myself. My husband and I have been married for 46 years. 40 of those years I've been in Humble. We have 2 precious children, one of which is Michael Morrison, who is a major in the United States Army. He is a graduate of Humble High School, a graduate of USMA West Point, and of the Air Force Technical Institute. Our daughter, Marjorie Morrison, also a graduate of Humble High School, graduate of Texas A&M College Station, and Sam Houston State University. Went into the education field, works down the road at New Caney ISD, and is an assistant principal. Our daughter-in-law is working on her education certification right now to become a teacher. And our precious, precious granddaughter, McCrae, who is 9 years old in the Texas school. And right now she's our precious granddaughter, but her big thing is soccer, okay? So our family has devoted itself to service. Service to our community, service to our country. Myself, I began teaching in Humble at Humble Elementary. And for those of you who remember when Humble Elementary was on Charles Street, okay, I worked there as a 1st and a 4th grade teacher. Then I advanced to the administration, and I was appointed assistant principalship and was assigned to Foster Elementary in Kingwood. Kingwood was young at that time. Trailwood and Forest Cove, the big areas. And then was assigned principal upon the retirement of the principal at that time. Then the district assigned me to Pine Forest Elementary, and I moved into the growing Atascocita area, okay? Stayed there for some 23 years. And then the district gave me the privilege and assigned me to open up a new school in the Lakeshore, Summerwood area, Lakeshore Elementary. Was there 5 years and enjoyed every minute of it. And you know, when you are given the privilege of building a culture and making those relationships and building those relationships, it is a great honor. Why have I chosen to run? I believe in quality education for our entire district. Do I know that we're going to deal with growth? We're going to deal with finances. We're going to deal with boundaries. And we're going to deal with appointing a new superintendent. I think it's very important that someone with educational background be on that board. Thank you.
And we've solicited questions from members of the different organizations that sponsored our forum tonight. Picked out some I believe are of general interest. The way we're going to do this is that we'll take turns. Each candidate will get a chance to be the first candidate to answer a question. That candidate will have 3 minutes, and then after that, the other candidates will each have 1 minute to say they agree or whether and how they disagree. So that said, we'll proceed with our first question. Beginning with Mr. Lopez. Several years ago, we had an academic audit for the district, and can you tell us what we learned from that, and whether you believe that the cost of the audit and the addition of the permanent administrative positions were a good value?
The academic audit was something that we as a board, along with Dr. Sconzo, thought we needed to evaluate where we were in different areas in the district, including curriculum and some other areas. It was a gap audit. So it was basically us putting ourselves out there, looking where we were deficient as a district in many different areas. We're talking about how the district was organized, and just many, many different areas. And so, long story short is that after that audit was completed, we put it on the website for everyone to see. I thought that was a pretty brave thing for anyone to do, to show our deficiencies, but again, that was the purpose of the audit. And as a result of that audit, we made organizational changes, we made staff changes, and we've attempted to put ourselves on a path to resolve some of those gaps. Where are we right now? Well, we are in the process of closing those gaps. The idea is to continue to work on those things and then re-audit about 3 or 4 years later. We are getting to that period where it's about that time that we're going to start talking about that and funding that follow-up audit by the same folks to basically say, okay, this is where you were then, these were your gaps, how have you done in closing those gaps? And so that is what has happened, and that is what is happening currently. An offshoot, however, of that audit has been some different things that we have done as a board. For example, we've brought in, and we may talk about this later, some other consultants to talk, because we thought it was a positive process, to deal with some other issues. Studer Group is one. Robert Sitton is the one who led that charge to bring that group in. They've 60 seconds, all right. So they've done a good job with that. I can tell you that the board, the reason why all of these things are done, and are they a net positive? Yes. The reason why they're done is that we want to see and have continuous improvement. And the only way to do that is to define a measuring stick. And the only way to do that is to see where you are now, and you set the goals of where you want to be. And with an organization this large, it has to be, it helps to use outside resources like we have done. So therefore, the continual improvement process that the academic audit brought, I think has been, as a whole, a net positive. And the aftermath of that, us not being afraid to put ourselves out there and bring in these outside consultants, has also been a net positive. And in the future, honestly, with all those things happening, is quite exciting.
Connor.
Okay, can you repeat the question again?
Yes, it's about the academic audit several years ago. Was the cost of the audit, the addition of the permanent administrative positions, a good value?
Again, without knowing all the intricate details as it relates to the financing of the audit, if it was underwritten by specific grants, I'll say that there are still several deficiencies that exist within Humble ISD as it relates to the audit. As Mr. Lopez has stated, it's a work in progress. Transparency as a board member, I would push it a step further. I would like to see more monitoring metrics within the audit to inform and advise the community and update the community before the expiration of the time in which we expect the goals and objectives to be accomplished. As a board member, I will push every year, if we have audits, to give the community an update, as well as get input from the principals on what worked, what didn't work, get input from the teachers on what worked and didn't work. That's an intricate key of actually moving the district, or a district as Humble ISD, forward. We're a very progressive district. Specifically, the response to intervention area within that audit that actually responds to the interventions of students that are struggling and identifies them and outlines different, stop, okay, thank you. That's the educator in me.
I feel your pain.
Mr. Rushing.
1 minute is just not enough.
To answer the question directly first, yes, the resources were worth it. You know, what this audit ultimately produced in 9 different sections were 14 overall recommendations. I could go through all 14, but that will take longer than 60 seconds. So I'll focus on 3. The first one was some low-hanging fruit. We had some opportunity to improve some things as it related to job descriptions, org charts, things like that, and the way we structured our curriculum department. That was easy, low-hanging fruit, check mark, that's done. The second was the method in which we assessed what student expectations are and how we measure those. One of the organizations we brought in to help make sure we're adding rigor and relevance to the classroom is an organization called ICLE. They've helped us accomplish that. We're moving into year 2 of that experience with them, and all signs point to that being a positive experience when you talk to principals and teachers across the district. The third is professional development that's intertwined into all of these elements and an important part, and we now have a 3-year plan in place for professional development. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, absolutely worth it. It's become our blueprint, something we needed to do, because you can't go from good to great unless you get a roadmap to do that. And that's what the audit had helped us to do. And it's interesting, the state requires a financial audit every year, but no such thing in terms of curriculum. And what are we in business for? To educate children the best we can with the resources we have. So I would think that would be something they would want to see happen on occasion, maybe every 4 years, every 5 years. So yeah, I think it was very important, and we're really moving ahead with that. And it's been mentioned, some of the resources we brought in, whether it be ICLE, Lead Forward, the Ruby Payne, cultural training, all those types of things, along with student group, because we do have measurables now. We target 4 main areas: student achievement, service across the district and between intra-district, financial, and people. So very, very important thing that happened.
Ms. Morrison?
I agree, you have to have an evaluation point. Just remember that we're all here. I mean, teachers are here for the students, the board's here for the students. We have to evaluate our programs. When you go, the curriculum audit, I'm familiar with it. I understand it, but I also know that we have to remember that when we evaluate these programs, what's working and what's not working. And that we want to be careful that we're keeping our personnel inside those buildings working with our kiddos and working for student success. So evaluation, yes, you have to have it. A roadmap, you have to have it. So yes, a curriculum audit is needed periodically. We just have to be careful The target goal is student success.
While we're talking about audits, let's think about financial audits. Starting with Mr. O'Connor, are you familiar with how many internal audits are performed in the district? What departments have been through internal audits in the last 2 or 3 years? How thoroughly and how often should that be done?
There are audits that need to be completed in departments yearly or annually. As far as how many audits Humble ISD actually go through in their departments, that's another piece of what I would change as a transparency piece as a board member. That should be common knowledge or advertised on the website to let the community know when audits are being reported out. However, yes, audits are part of the educational process, whether it's Idea B grant audit, whether it's the grants division with title funds audit, whether it's an audit of just general funds. Yes, audits are necessary. Audits really tell us where our money is being spent. We must stop waste and invest more money in our children's academic programming. We must invest more money to ensure that our schools are safe. We must invest more money to make sure that our kids are getting the proper supports in response to intervention on the campuses and getting the resources to the teachers that they need to perform and be the best that they can be. There was a teacher that I met on the campaign trail that simply asked me, why do I have to ask my parents for certain supplies? I mean, it was very disturbing for me to know that Humble ISD or this particular campus, and I don't want to generalize, did not provide those materials or resources for teachers. And audits tell us that, where our money's spent. What should we be doing with our money? And when we get the audit, we should actually develop a plan to make sure that we're executing as the state says we should in general and special education.
Thank you. You don't know and you can't improve what you don't measure, and you don't look at and you don't audit. So absolutely, audits are important. It's important in any business that you're a part of, and especially so in education. We have a $311 million budget that we're responsible for. It's almost impossible to know where every single nook and cranny of that money is, but I can tell you this board with its conservative management is doing a very good job understanding that to the best degree possible as we make decisions for this school district. Specifically as it relates to areas, I'll tell you, we've learned a lot as a board. We have an audit committee whose purpose is to monitor this activity throughout the district. Mr. Cunningham in the back chairs that committee. And we do learn, and we do take action. It has led to policy change, it has led to process change, and it has led to approval changes in terms of who approves things and how much and levels and things like that. So we do use that function, take it very seriously within Humble ISD.
Garfo?
Yes, these audits go on. There's regular audits that happen on a frequency. We have an internal audit department, actually a department that we really elevated in the last 12, 18 months because we saw the importance of that function. And if you look at our financial department as well, with the awards that they continue to earn from the state and even nationally in terms of how our finances are maintained, it's very, very comforting to know. I can assure you that what happened in Beaumont would never, ever happen in Humble ISD. It just won't. Not with the policies and procedures we have in place and the pains we go to ensure that, because that's the board's role, is not just setting policy, but then through governance, making sure that policies are followed so the result is what we desire. Thank you.
Ms. Morrison?
I understand, like everyone, you have to have your checks and balances. You have to have your audits. You have to make sure that you take care of your business, okay? We deal with very little funding. I mean, it is scarce. In a school, you deal with very little money, but you have to be very careful with it, okay? So we have to have those. But what we do have to remember is we have to make sure we can get the resources to our teachers and to our staff so they have those resources for their students. We can't make it so complicated that they can't get to it. Okay?
Thank you.
Do you want me to
Yeah,
answer it?
go
Okay.
ahead.
We audit like crazy, and we've covered it. The issue with audits is what happens when the information is brought back to the management, to the board. Do you have a board and people there that are not afraid to make a decision, sometimes hard decisions, working with the superintendent as well? That is where it's important for the people at this table. Do you change policy? If you change policy, how do you change policy? What needs to be changed in response to these findings of this audit? That is the mission, and that's the purpose, and that's what we do as a board. And over the last 2 years, I can tell you that the amount of information that's been brought back through audits to this board has resulted in more policy changes than I've ever seen in my 9 years on this board. So it's working well what is happening and the information that's being brought back to this board. So I think that kind of answers the question, at least from my perspective on the board.
Beginning with Mr. O'Connor now. Sorry. What do you think are the 3 weakest areas in the district's operations?
I think first and foremost is transparency. We are taking that on as a district and as a board. We have begun that process with the development of a new district scorecard through the accountability measures that we now hold the superintendent responsible for. You will see as we set those baselines with those changes that 50% is weighted on student achievement, 50% is weighted on other items that are important. You will begin to see that become much more of a public document across the district. And so you can look forward to that as we complete those baselines this year as a measuring stick moving forward. The second is we have not had a focus, in my opinion, on every student within the district. How do you drive performance for every single child? Not just children that are at the bottom that need to get up to a median. It's not just children at the top that need to get to the 95th percentile. It's all students. I'm proud of the work that we're doing with ICLE that drives that rigor and relevance and drives some of that measurement system into the classroom so that we can measure all kids' performance as it relates to student achievement and the success of that. The third is overall measurement of items. We have to have more systems in place that we measure in order to know that we're making the progress against those goals. And so with that district scorecard, you will find measures that are not soft. They are based upon evidence. They're based upon data that will help drive this organization forward.
Thank you. I'd just like to add, one of the other things I see, and as I mentioned earlier, is technology, but that's something that we, again, are making some serious inroads on, and we will accomplish, particularly over this next school year, coming with putting funding towards it, because we need to do that. And again, it's not technology for technology's sake, because that really doesn't get us anywhere. It's technology that enhances student learning, and that's why we'll be working this summer. The district will start with integration of technology into the curriculum. There's a lot of folks involved in this process coming under the overall board technology committee, and that's very important for us. And then choosing devices and what those are going to be and what the needs are going to be. But I'd say that, and our response to intervention, we're putting a lot of effort into that. It's something where we really had kind of slipped, and that's crucial to get overall student achievement up.
Ms. Morrison?
Okay, I would say technology is a weakness. Very definitely, I think the infrastructure needs to look at. I think we need to look at, you know, when we spend our money and we spend our money for items, if the teachers aren't prepared, if they're not prepared and they don't have the preparation and they don't have the training, it's difficult. So you need to train your teachers to understand and how to use that technology within that classroom, but you have to have an infrastructure to hold it. You know, bringing your own devices is very nice, but if your teachers aren't prepared to use it and understand it, they need their prep time. Also, you need to give them time to learn. Maybe you need to add some time for them, but you don't want to take them out of the classrooms in order to do it.
Mr. Pez?
I think without question, tech and RTI are weak areas. We're doing our best to improve RTI. I think that we're making headways there. Technology's financial, period. Non-politically correct answer. If I had an opponent, I probably wouldn't say this, but accountability. And I'm not talking about firing people. What I'm talking about is looking at people where they're weak and having a program process in place that you're not afraid to say, look, you need to improve this. This is what needs to happen. And this is not necessarily Humble specific, it's more educational specific. But we are, those are the three areas I think clearly as a district we are the weakest in.
I would say transparency and community engagement. We must keep our community engaged and informed. Making sure that community members are aware of what's going on in a district as progressive as Humble ISD is key to keeping myths and other untruths out there throughout the district. Response to intervention, I stated that in a previous response. That has to be well defined so we can effectively assess where every student in the district is achieving, as well as those that are struggling, and then customize plans to address those academic deficiencies. And safety, which is number one, because we know we can't suspend ourselves to success. We must make sure that we have the social programs in place on our campuses to make sure that we assist those that are engaged in negative behaviors and those that are impacted otherwise by negative behaviors. So I think those are the three things that, as a board, I would try to corral our board members around to push forward an agenda that supports those three issues.
Beginning now with Mr. Scarfo, those of you who are incumbents on the board, can you tell us how many times in the past, say, 2 years, that you have voted against the majority on the board? And then those of you who are non-incumbents, can you name a couple of decisions where you believe you differ with decisions that the board has made in the last, say, 2 years?
In the last 2 years, there was probably at least three that come to mind. And we don't always have a 7-0 vote on the board, and that's fine. There's a lot of times it is, but it's not because we're rubber stamping anything the administration's doing. It's because we spend a lot of time prior to the meeting in discussions and getting information and coming to terms with different aspects and maybe changes in terms of what that ultimate recommendation is going to be. But there are times when it's not 7-0. There was one at the last meeting, and I think there were only 6 in attendance. I think Mr. Lopez was out of town, and that passed, I believe, 4-2. So that was one where I was not in the minority on that one, but it was one where we did not have a 7 or 6-0 vote. There's been some others when, with resolutions where for personnel, and all the board can ever do on personnel is to either approve or not approve the recommendation of the superintendent, because everything is all put together, whether it's hiring a teacher, whether it's hiring a principal, whether it's hiring an assistant superintendent. Those tend to all be, excuse me, in that month's package. But there have been times when I haven't agreed with choices, but I can't make a recommendation of who that choice should be. No board member can. All I can ever do is raise my hand and unfortunately have to vote no for the entire package. And you hate for other people to think, well, boy, did he not like me or what? And that's not it. And you can't get into, because we can't discuss individuals, but I just have to, if that's how I feel, I have to vote what I think's best. So I have been in that position where I've been the only one to vote no. So I think it's good that we communicate and that many of the issues, and if you have attended meetings, you'll notice on our consent agendas, we go through those. Sometimes there's items pulled because for whatever reason, a board member wants to discuss something that's on that consent, but many of those items are voted on as a package because, again, as I said earlier, we have done our research, we've gotten questions answered, and we don't have to belabor things at the board table because everything is where it needs to be. So I would say that that's a good practice and good governance on our part, and I think it's healthy that we have. I like to see public discussion. I oftentimes, when people approach me about an issue that's burning to them, I will encourage them to come to a board meeting. They have 5 minutes that they can speak, and we can't address. I'm sorry, I have to stop.
Ms. Morrison?
Okay, I don't know that I've disagreed, but I think that if I say anything to all of you, I think I'm strong enough and I'm opinionated enough and I think enough about this district that I would make a decision that on that board, with that board, that is best for kids and best for our students and our community.
Bez?
It is a common misconception that we are some type of rubber stamp because we vote with the administration 95% of the time. 95% of the votes that we take are there for transparency purposes. We believe as a board, and the boards even before when I got on the board, a lot of stuff's there on the agenda because it becomes a public item. Anyone can research it, especially now with the internet. And so if you put something on the agenda, it goes out there in the public, the people that are putting the agenda together, the things to vote on, it's a public item, and everyone, of course we're going to approve $25,000 in food for kids or whatever it is. And those votes happen 95% of the time. So it's not a rubber stamp, it's there mainly for the sunlight disinfectant factor. As for voting against, I have no idea how many times I voted. It was the minority. There's one particular vote that I can think of right now that happened right after we reformed the board last year. But yeah, I've gone against the administration before. I'd like to think that my wit and intelligence, I convince most people to vote with me. And so I'm usually in the majority, but that is not true either. So thank you.
Mr. O'Connor?
I can't say that I would confirm or dispute any decision that the current board has made simply because, as several of the board members have stated, they had an opportunity to research information surrounding the decision. However, what I would do is assure you that I would take the I out of it and represent the community. I would represent the overall interests of the community. It's not about what I vote. It's about what you elected me to do. So as a board member, I assure you, I'll be transparent and I'll represent the interests of you, the community.
Thank you. Sorry? Yeah.
All right, so one time to answer the question directly in my first 2 years. It was actually one of the first few votes that I took, so it was an interesting experience, although I'm happy to share what it was. We have a process for succession planning for our officers on the board. I did not agree with that process of it just being time as the only criteria for which you become an officer on the board. I still believe that today. And so I felt we needed a more rigorous process and election for officers on our board. So I voted against it. Thanks.
All right. Last question. We'll start with Ms. Morrison. Tell us what you know about the early college program at Lone Star College. What do you think is good about it, and if any, what may be deficiencies in it?
Well, I'll say this, since I taught at Lone Star the first semester, I worked with some of the kids that came from the Humble campus over in Atascocita. I'm very much a proponent for early college. I think it's good for kids. I think we have to understand that education it should look different in many instances, okay? Now, deficiencies, I'm not sure. I truly don't know enough about it to say what the exact deficiencies are, okay? But I definitely feel like that we should move forward with it and how it looks, and working with the district personnel and working with the facts and the figures and the data from it. We need to use that to see exactly how successful it is.
Lopez? Oh. Is that the one that's working as well?
Yes.
Ah, that's the one.
Early college is a wonderful program. Kids have the opportunity to get college credits many different ways, AP, whatnot. This is a program where our kids can graduate with associate's degrees when they get their high school diploma. What are some deficiencies? I'm not sure this is a deficiency, is that it's an uncertainty. We've have some issues about where is it going to be, cost, these types of things. I think that at least from my opinion, I think it's a worthwhile program. I want it to continue, and I will do everything I can for it to continue here at the district. Thank you.
I'll have to agree as it relates to early colleges. I actually work in the district where we have several early colleges. They're actually a good conduit to prepare our students for college. However, I'll push it a step further. Why not more magnet schools? Why not specialty schools that pique the interest of our students? Again, it's a cost deal, but engage the community, ask the community what they want, and this would be an issue that you would go to the students with. What are their interests? What about the green opportunities, the opportunities to work in green fields? What about the opportunities to work in engineering? What about the opportunities to work in health professions, pharmacy tech? All the career pathways that are there, we should have specialty programs, and I'm sure because of the new career pathways that exist by state mandate, we have some of those programs that will be emerging. But again, specialty schools, early colleges, things of that nature, we push the envelope on that. We're a progressive district here in Humble ISD. Let's put our money where our mouth is and invest in our students.
Absolutely support the program. I will tell you that one of the most rewarding experiences of my first year at the board was attending the high school graduations. And the most enthusiastic one of all of them was the one that was for this program. And I will tell you that set of kids were extremely happy with their successes and with a lot of joy, parents as well. And so it really helped me better understand the impact that program has on our district and our children. And so, when you look at the issues that exist today, one is we're running out of space because the program's growing, which is a good thing. In order to have a program like that sustain itself from a cost and expense standpoint is it has to grow. You have to have the student population to justify the needs. We have that today. So we share that. They share that data with us every single year. We know exactly what the cost per student is as it relates to comparisons with other schools. And so we'll absolutely continue to support that moving forward.
Mr. Garfield?
Thank you. I will say this, and Ms. Noyes knows, I was not an early adopter because, for the reason Ms. Morrison pointed out, that the data was not being made available. We would have resolutions before us to vote for the program and to allow it to go for another year or 2 years, but the data wasn't being supplied so that we could really judge that. And that's a very key component to what a board member does. You have to look at initiatives and you have to look at how they're being measured. But over the 4 years, it's really developed into just an awesome program. I had the opportunity to attend the freshman orientation at Lone Star this past August, the end of August, and it was great to see all the kids there. We were oversubscribed this year for the freshman class. They actually had to go through an acceptance process. So that the program has really taken off. It provides students and their parents a great leg up if they want to go on for additional education. Thank you.
Candidates have tables in the lobby where they'll have literature and signs for those of you who are interested, and they'll be available to answer the questions that you had that we didn't get to ask here tonight. Early voting begins April 27th. Encourage everybody to vote and bring a friend when you do. At least, yes. I've often observed that city councils and school boards are probably the two most thankless elected jobs there are. I think we ought to express our appreciation to all of our candidates tonight for subjecting themselves to this process, and perhaps extend our sympathies to those who finally win. Thank you all, and good night.